In today's video, we're going to continue on with our series covering all 31 NHL teams, where we complete a 17-18 season recap and look ahead to the 2018 offseason. Today's team we're discussing is the Los Angeles Kings, and that's coming up next. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. If you're new to the channel, thanks for stopping by. We review and discuss all 31 NHL teams, so if you're a huge hockey fan, consider subscribing and clicking the bell so you don't miss anything. So as I mentioned off the top, today we're going to continue on with our series and we're discussing the Los Angeles Kings. Obviously the Los Angeles Kings had a pretty decent season. They ended up going 45-29-8 for 98 points. Finished in 4th place in the Pacific Division and made the playoffs. Now, unfortunately, their playoff run didn't last very long. They went out to a 4-game sweep to the Vegas Golden Knights. So we're going to dive into a little bit deeper in their 2017-18 season, take a look at the numbers and discuss some of the things that went well, some things that didn't go so well, and we'll look ahead to the offseason and touch on their prospect pool as well, so we get an idea of what to look forward to for this team next season. Now, they finished with a plus 35 goal differential, scoring 237 goals for, which puts them at 16th in the league. They allowed 202 goals against, which was excellent, and they finished first in the whole NHL. They also finished first in the PK with a strong 85%. Their power play was 20.4%, putting them in 17th place, and their face-off win percentage was 49.7%, also putting them in 17th position. So obviously they had a couple of strengths that were tops in the NHL, being goals against and the penalty kill. Obviously their defense core and Jonathan Quick obviously played a big role in keeping the puck out of the net this past season. As we've seen in the playoffs, though, their inability to score kind of is what slowed them down against the Vegas Golden Knights. But throughout the season, they were pretty average when it comes to goals for. Thankfully, the goals against and the PK is really what propelled them into the playoffs, in my opinion. Obviously, they're by far the best in the NHL this past season, so that was by far their strong suit. Let's take a look at some of the bright spots for this team this year. Obviously, we saw a couple of players really have a resurgence and a bounce-back season in a big way, and that's Captain Anze Kopitar, who really came back strong with 35 goals, 57 assists, and 92 points. He had a phenomenal year, certainly back true to his old form. Last season was a down year for Kopitar, but he certainly came back in a big way this year. Another guy's Dustin Brown. Did he ever come back as well? That contract that Dustin Brown has really looked like a major albatross for the LA Kings, but he made it look a little bit better with his performance this past year. He finished with 28 goals and 33 assists for 61 points, so that was a major improvement for Dustin Brown. Moving on from Coach Daryl Sutter, letting John Stevens take over as the head coach, I think was very beneficial for both of their games in order to bounce back this past year. Obviously, superstar defenseman Drew Doughty had another tremendous season, putting up 10 goals and 50 assists for 60 points. Obviously, Doughty is once again a nominee for the Norris Trophy, one of the best in the NHL by far. So, Drew Doughty, you can count on to have a big year pretty much every year. Tyler Toffoli had a pretty good season, scoring 24 goals. And I personally thought rookie Adrian Kempe put up a pretty good showing as well, scoring 16 goals and 37 points. He was off to a tremendous start in the first month or so of the season. He did cool down, but all things considered, I think for his rookie season to have 16 goals and 37 points, I thought was still pretty solid and certainly warrants some recognition here. Goaltender Jonathan Quick obviously bounced back. The year before, he missed a significant amount of time due to injuries, which played a big reason why the Kings did not have a great year the year before. So they certainly bounced back largely on his play. He finished with a record of 33, 28, and 3, a 2.4 goals against average, and a 921 save percentage. Those numbers aren't going to put him up in the top 5 of the NHL, but still pretty solid numbers to kind of give his team a chance to win every night, which is all you can expect. His early play early in the year looked like he might be the runaway favorite for the Vezina Trophy, but again, like a lot of the other team, he kind of tailed off and kind of leveled out. This team got off to a flying start to the season. There was a big stretch of the year early on where they were in first place. They were getting tremendous performances from a lot of guys, and not that they really tailed off and had bad years, but they just kind of leveled out. After the flying start, some of their players just kind of came back down to earth and kind of put up more average numbers for the rest of the year, kind of leveled out their stats for the season, but certainly a good season from Jonathan Quick for sure. Having that steady goaltender back there really makes a huge difference for a team to have a chance to win night in and night out. Let's take a look at a couple of not so bright spots for this team that really didn't go well this season. Number one I'm going to mention is Jeff Carter. Obviously not to his own fault, but he missed a significant amount of time with a major injury this year. Obviously not having him in the lineup for the first number of months for the season was a major blow to this team. He only ended up getting into 27 games, but when he did play, his numbers were pretty decent, and I thought he came back from his injury pretty strong and looked pretty solid, but not having him in that lineup for a big chunk of the year really had a major impact. Tanner Pearson's goal totals were down as well. I thought he had a really down year. He went from 24 goals the year before down to 15 this year. And really overall just a lack of secondary scoring. You could lump Pearson into that. But obviously their top line was playing pretty well. But there were certainly lots of times when they weren't getting a lot of scoring out of their second, third, and fourth lines, and which really hampered them from not finishing higher in the standings. And it really came back to bite them in the playoffs. Vegas really figured out how to shut them down, and they were very limited in the 4 games that they played against the Golden Knights in the playoffs. It really didn't generate much offense at all. Now, we did see a few moves by the LA Kings throughout the season. They signed college free agent Daniel Brickley, who's a pretty good-sized defenseman. So Brickley should be inserted into their lineup next year. So it'll be interesting to see how he can handle the NHL level and see how he can progress here. They had a few trades that were reasonably significant as well. Obviously, earlier in the year, they traded Darcy Kuemper for Tobias Reeder. So Reeder played pretty decent for the LA Kings, I think. They picked up Torrey Mitchell from the Montreal Canadiens. And, of course, the biggest deal that they made throughout the year was the big trade with the Ottawa Senators, where they picked up Dion Phaneuf and Nate Thompson from the Ottawa Senators in exchange for Marian Gaborik and Nick Shore. So obviously, in a sense, it was kind of a swap of bad contracts. They got Ottawa to retain a little bit of Dion's contract. The Kings were quite high on Dion Phaneuf to add him some size and muscle back on the back end there. And he did look actually like he performed pretty well, to be honest. I think Phaneuf played some of his best hockey I've seen in a while once he joined the LA Kings. So I think so far they're pretty happy with that. Although as time goes on, they may not be too fond of his contract, which seems to be the big problem with Dion. As much as he's a pretty good, solid defenseman, that contract he was given by the Maple Leafs way back is still, way much of an overpayment for what he brings to the lineup every night. Let's take a look at their contract situation and salary cap situation for next year. Obviously, they don't have a whole lot in the way of free agents. For UFAs, they have Torrey Mitchell and defenseman Christian Folin. Obviously, they may or may not return. It's really debatable. And the RFAs, the main one they need to sign is Tobias Reeder. Reeder ended up putting up 12 goals and 25 points. So with Tobias Reeder being the only notable RFA they have to look after, I'm sure he'll get a qualifying contract. Probably nothing too long-term, considering he put up 12 goals and 25 points. But overall, I think Reeder certainly deserves a new contract and will likely remain with the organization. I would say probably on a 1 or 2 year contract would be my guess. Now, as far as other guys, they do have some guys that are eligible for extensions. Even though they don't have much in the way of prominent, unrestricted free agents, they do have some pretty big names, including defenseman Drew Doughty, who could negotiate their contract extension this summer. Once July 1st rolls around, you have players like Drew Doughty, Alex Iafallo, and Adrian Kempe are all eligible for extensions. Now, in the way of Kempe and Iafallo, it's really hard to say if those extensions will get done this summer or not. They certainly could wait, where they only have a limited amount of NHL action under their belts. It might be in their best interest to try to play this season, see what they can do, show what they're capable of. They may get a more prominent raise the year after if they're able to do that. But the Drew Doughty contract is certainly going to be a big one to watch. It's certainly going to set the market in a way of what a lot of other guys that are comparable, like an Erik Karlsson, for example, is going to end up demanding when their contracts come up. So it's hard to say, but I know Drew Doughty's made it clear that he'd like to stay in LA. I know LA would certainly like to keep him as well. So I'm sure they're going to offer him an 8-year contract. Obviously, it's going to be a raise over what he's making now. So certainly leave a comment down below. What do you think the Drew Doughty contract is going to look like? What do you think he's going to command for an annual salary? But it certainly will be interesting to see if that gets done early this summer on July 1st. I'm not sure if they're going to be ready to present him with an offer just yet, but I know they've already kind of began talking a little bit to kind of outline the parameters of what things need to look like to get things done. But it looks pretty confident right now that Drew Doughty will remain an LA King and more likely get an 8-year contract. Just a matter of finalizing what the number is going to be. Now, in terms of LA Kings prospects, the main prominent one who could jump into this lineup next year would be center Gabe Vilardi. Vilardi is a very offensive centerman who's got a good size as well. Considering that the Kings' main area of focus that I think they need to work on for next year is getting some more scoring, if Vilardi does make the team and jump into the lineup, obviously he's known for his offense, so maybe that's something he can help with for sure. Otherwise, if the Kings do make any moves this year, I would fully suspect that they would probably try to add a scoring winger. They've been linked to some players like a Max Pacioretty or a Mike Hoffman or a player of that magnitude, somebody who's 25 to 30 goals. Can obviously, you need somebody who's a pretty good skater as well. So there's lots of scoring wingers out there that have been rumored and speculated to be involved in trade rumors that we've discussed here in the channel before. So the Kings have been linked to being interested in some of those guys. Hard to say for sure if they'll actually pull off a move this summer, but if they look to add anything, that would be my guess, is they need to add a little bit more of a scoring punch. Probably somebody who can be like a second-line winger, maybe even a first-line winger as well. You just never know. Some comments down below. If the LA Kings are going to make some moves this summer, what do you expect personally? And if you think that they need to add scoring like I do, who would be some good trading targets or potential free agent targets that they should look at adding to their roster for the 18-19 NHL season? I don't think it would hurt as well if the LA Kings work on trying to get their team a little bit faster. As we've seen in the playoffs against the Vegas Golden Knights, the Golden Knights' speed really played a major role in making it difficult on the Kings to handle them. So I would not be surprised to see them try to get their team a little bit faster next year as well. So whoever they look to add to this roster, not only do they need to add somebody who can score, but if they can find somebody who has got some pretty good wheels on them as well, that would be a major help as well. If you're new to our channel here, I hope you'll consider subscribing. We cover all 31 NHL teams. There's plenty of content here for all hockey fans to enjoy. Don't forget to leave a comment about the LA Kings offseason. I want to hear from you. What do you expect from this team moving forward in order to help them get better for next season? If you haven't done so already, check us out on Twitter. You're going to find our Twitter handle on the screen right here. We're very active on Twitter, and we'd love to have more hockey conversations with you there. So if you use Twitter, please follow us and check it out. As always, thank you very much for watching, everybody. We will catch you next time.